Hey, what's up guys? I just finished with these two builds and I ran across a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One of them has to do with the stock adapters and the other happens to do with the these V20 stocks and the power that they can take. It's not really the stocks, it's the circuit board. Back in the day, we used to run 5S packs on these, and we would run a wire down there and have it in a magazine pouch on the buttstock. But yeah, that was okay, but I really didn't like it. I mean, anybody who's followed this channel knows that I've never liked that, to the point so much that I've designed this to take these Craftsman batteries. Okay, now in my testing, I built the short one first, and I tested it with the 4 amp Craftsman battery and all went well. And then I built the long one and I went to test it with the 4 amp battery, and the power switch welded itself closed, so you couldn't turn it off by the power switch. Now, some of you guys remember that that was a big hassle when I was trying to run 6S, you know, trying to see how fast I could push it when I did that 10K build. So we did a whole lot of stuff to the board to make it soft start for 6S. That would only work with 6S. So anyway, I was under the impression that, 5S, these batteries would not give me the problem, because back in the day we used to run 5S all the time. Now, this was like 10 years ago, and I suspect that battery technology has improved slightly over that time, and I think that they're making the batteries a little hotter today. And that's not the first time I've run that 4 amp pack. However, I believe a 4 amp Craftsman pack is playing with fire if you want to try to power one of these, as far as it welding the power switch closed. I would not recommend the 4 amp pack. Right now, I can only recommend the 2 amp pack. It hasn't ever given me a problem. Now, those of you who have mentioned that there's a 3 amp aftermarket pack for sale on Amazon, I can't remember how many of you guys I recommended that to and who had me do these stocks for. I've reached out to those of you who I remember 100%, but the rest of you guys, you can reach out to me personally or drop it down in the comments. I haven't heard from any of y'all on how that battery works. I was just operating under the assumption that 3 amps was going to be, more better, because the problem was that we were running 6 14500s, which is actually a little bit over the capacity of the capacitors on the circuit board, but it was just barely over. And when you turn it on, you have the motor drawing current at the same time the capacitors are charging up, so it never gave us a problem. And the amperage was a lot lower, so the inrush of amperage is what's doing it. And 4 amps, like a genuine Craftsman battery, that's just too much of an inrush of amperage. But this one ran fine in testing, as you can see here. All right, we got you going with this one. This is the 2017 model, the one with the Russian barrel. Now, when I dug in here, I noticed that, from reefing on this, from the previous owner reefing on this, the frame is actually cracked. But it's fine. It works fine. And I'll have the other one ready shortly. And this one ran fine with the 2-amp battery. Two-amp batteries are lighter anyway. Now on to the stocks. Remember when I was talking about these and how Bruce recommended that I try this, but I couldn't find the exact same size, but I think I found one that was about the same at Lowe's, and then I put one together on camera. Well, I tried to do it off camera, and the weirdest thing happened, because normally stuff doesn't work right on camera and it works fine off camera. Well, when I tried to build the stock for that one, this completely failed. So I spent an entire day coming up with an entirely different system to mount the stock to the frame. And this is what that looks like. What those two prongs are, they are printed PETG. They have a long bolt going through them. The bolt goes through the stock adapter and then goes through those two long shanks. And the blue parts are flexible. They're a flexible filament that I print with sometimes. And then the end pieces are more PETG, hard. So there's a bolt is captured in that end piece. So the screw head is on the inside of the adapter that you tighten down, and it pulls those pieces together and squeezes the blue part and makes it expand, and it's in there like swimwear. But since that piece is captured, that nut is slightly captured in there, you got to be real careful when you're taking them apart, because it's in there really good. And if you back that bolt out all the way out of that nut, you got to be super careful getting it back in there, because you could push it out and then you could have it rattling around in there. And they're in there quite tight. So I don't think you could get those shanks out without having to destroy them and having to completely remount it. So that's just something to be aware of on my system. Now, I think it's a great system. It's a lot sturdier than, well, that didn't even work for me, but it's just as sturdy as the rustling deals, I'd say. You know, I kind of took the best of both worlds. The ones that Rustling had were a solid piece of billet aluminum in the same shape as mine, but they would slip out. They were famous for slipping out. The way I would deal with that is I'd put a piece of like Gorilla Tape on the inside that would kind of grab it as you shoved it in there. So I took that shape, and then I used the idea of the ones that Jim C and Drozdmax came up with that squeezed the O-ring, but theirs was circular, and that's just how I came up with that. So that is that. All right, and one more thing. Sergey is now in Montenegro. He tried to send a board to Canada a few days ago, and they would not let him do it at the local post office. So he had to send it DHL, which ended up costing him $150. Well, probably not Sergey, probably the buyer. Now I have one circuit board left. After that circuit board, there is going to be an additional $50 tacked on to the build. Now, those of you who don't know what a build is, these are much more than a build. A build is just taking a Jaws Blackbird and doing the work in the hopper and installing the circuit board and getting it air ready. That piece is extra, but it comes with an internal air adapter. It's just bare bones when I say a build. This stuff like barrels, barrel shrouds, shutoffs, all that stuff is extra. The V20, that's extra. I also wanted to show you something about this short barrel. This short barrel is one of the Russian 400 millimeter barrels that I am so fond of. If you look close, you can see that it has a chrome liner in it. I don't know if any other air guns on the market have a chrome liner, but this has a smooth chrome liner for a BB machine gun. And those of you guys who don't know, these are now Select Fire BB machine guns. The maximum velocity on these is 1,150 feet per second, and they shoot 5,000 rounds a minute. They're powered by paintball tanks, generally 1,100 PSI. Well, we can do more. I'm gonna put you up here so I don't knock that over. Now this one came to me like this. I've sold at least 20 of these barrels, but I don't know how many more there are in the wild. I could have sold this one a while ago. I just want to show you something that happened because this was installed improperly. You can see the apprentice marks all over it, so that was an indication that something had gone terribly wrong. Okay, the way these barrels install is this collar nut unscrews this way and tightens this way. This, and it goes through here. And right in here, the frame is like that on the inside. It goes through the frame, and then there's a nut on this side. So it goes through the frame and through a nut. And then this barrel, as it screws in through the frame to the nut, it squeezes to this. And then this piece, this foregrip, whatever you want to call it, this is loose. This board housing is loose. That is when you tighten this down. So if you're ever installing one of these barrels, or if you ever run across one of these barrels, the proper way to remove it is loosen this nut first. If the whole barrel loosens, fine. But when you go to reinstall it, loosen this all the way, as far that way as it'll go. And then you screw it into your barrel nut. Yeah, I've got a video on that, on installing barrels. I guess I'll leave a link down below because I'm not sure if I've got the Russian barrel on there or not. But yeah, you screw this in to your barrel nut, get it hand tight, and then cinch this down. Now, this was cinched all the way down before they started screwing it into the nut. And what that did, actually, can we still see it? Yeah, what it did was it cracked this portion right here. I was actually supposed to put this barrel on this gun, but the way it is now with this shroud, I'll just have to check with the owner, but that holds it together. See, with this shroud, it doesn't really depend on it because the shroud also squeezes everything together. Whereas on a Drozdmax barrel, this nut is the only thing that holds this half and this half together. All right, so that is all I wanted to say about that. Yeah, got that one board left, and then from there, it's going to be an additional fee. So I've had a couple of you guys beating around the bush. It's time to shit or get off the pot. Later.